The front bumper of my new Lexus was hanging halfway off the frame when I pulled into my parents' driveway. One headlight blinked weakly against the dark like it was trying to stay alive. My sister stood beside the wreck holding an iced coffee, completely relaxed. Then she smirked at me. "Dad will make you forgive me," she said casually, tossing her keys onto the porch table. My father didn't even look embarrassed. He crossed his arms and sighed like I was already becoming difficult. "Cars can be replaced, Avery. Don't start drama over family." That word again. Family. It had followed me my entire life like a threat disguised as love. When Chloe wrecked my laptop in college, I forgave her. When she borrowed $8,000 after her divorce and never repaid it, I forgave her. Every disaster somehow became my responsibility because I was supposedly the mature sister. But this car was different. I bought it 3 weeks earlier after working 80-hour weeks for almost 2 years straight. No help from anyone. No cosigner. No family money. Chloe walked closer, still smiling. Then I opened my purse and pulled out the insurance report. Her expression changed instantly. Chloe stopped smiling the second she saw the paper in my hand. Not because she cared about the car. Chloe never cared about consequences until they became public. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, folding her arms tighter. I looked at my father first. "You told me she hit a mailbox." "She did," he answered too quickly. I unfolded the report slowly. The crease down the center was still sharp from the insurance office. "That's strange," I said. Because according to the witness statement, Chloe rear-ended another vehicle hard enough to shove it through an intersection. Silence swallowed the porch. My mother looked at Chloe. "You said nobody else was involved." "There barely was," Chloe snapped. The woman stopped short. The report trembled slightly in my hand, not from fear. Anger. "She has 2 fractured ribs," I said quietly. "And her son was in the back seat." Dad's entire expression shifted then, but not toward Chloe.
"Toward me."
"Avery," he warned softly. "Don't make this uglier than it needs to be." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Not "are they okay?" Not "why didn't Chloe tell us?" Just protect Chloe. Again. Then Chloe rolled her eyes and muttered the one thing that changed everything. She shouldn't have survived the hit anyway. The porch went completely silent after Chloe said it. Even the ice machine humming behind the kitchen fridge seemed louder than anyone breathing. My mother stared at her like she hadn't heard correctly. "Chloe." "What?" she snapped defensively. "I'm saying the woman slammed her brakes for no reason." I looked at my sister for a long moment, searching for even a flicker of guilt. There was nothing. Just irritation that her evening had become inconvenient. That was the exact second something inside me finally broke loose. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like a rope snapping after years of strain. I folded the insurance report carefully and slipped it back into my purse. Dad noticed immediately. "Good," he said, relieved. "Now everybody calm down and let's handle this privately." Privately. Meaning Chloe stays protected while everyone else absorbs the damage. I almost laughed. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the photo the insurance investigator emailed me an hour earlier. The screen showed Chloe climbing out of the Lexus outside a downtown bar 23 minutes before the crash. Cocktail glass still in her hand. Dad's face drained of color. Mom whispered, "Oh my God." But Chloe recovered fast. Too fast. She looked directly at me and smiled again. Then she said, "You won't report your own sister." I wish I could say I answered immediately. I didn't, because part of me still wanted my family to prove me wrong. I kept waiting for anyone, to finally draw a line for Chloe without me forcing it. Instead, Dad rubbed his forehead and said, "Everybody makes mistakes." I actually felt my heartbeat slow down after that. Not from calmness. From clarity. Chloe leaned against the porch railing like she had already won.
"See?
You're overreacting again." Overreacting. The same word they used when Chloe ruined my graduation dinner by screaming at a waiter until security walked her outside. The same word they used after she pawned our grandmother's jewelry and lied about it for months. Every memory suddenly connected inside me like shattered glass forming a mirror. I wasn't family to them. I was clean up. I opened my contacts and pressed the investigator's number. Dad stood instantly. Avery, don't. My thumb hovered above the screen. Why not? Because once you do this, there's no fixing it. That almost made me stop. Then Chloe laughed under her breath and said, "Please. Dad would never let anything happen to me." I looked straight at her while the call connected. Then I said quietly, "That's exactly why I have to." The investigator answered on the second ring. "Ms. Mercer?" the investigator said through the speaker. "Have you made a decision?" Nobody moved. My father looked frozen beside the porch steps, like speaking too fast might still stop this from happening. Mom had both hands covering her mouth now. Chloe just stared at me, disbelief slowly replacing confidence. I swallowed once. "Yes," I said. "I want my full statement added to the claim." Chloe pushed off the railing immediately. "Are you insane?" The investigator continued calmly. "Including the possible DUI evidence you mentioned earlier?" Dad's head snapped toward Chloe. "What evidence?" he demanded. I never looked away from my sister. The bar receipt was inside the car. For the first time all night, Chloe's expression cracked completely. "You searched my purse?" she shouted. "No," I answered. "The paramedics found it beside the driver's seat." Mom sat down heavily on the porch chair like her knees stopped working. The investigator's voice stayed steady. "Ms. Mercer, once this is filed, law enforcement will likely request formal interviews." Dad stepped closer to me carefully. "Avery, please." Not angry anymore. Scared. Because he finally understood this wasn't disappearing. I closed my eyes for 1 second, hearing years of excuses echo in my head. Then Chloe said the worst possible thing. "If I go down," she whispered, "I'm taking Dad with me." Dad went pale so fast it honestly scared me. "Chloe," Mom whispered. "What does that mean?" My sister looked cornered now, breathing harder, mascara slightly smeared beneath one eye. For the first time in years, she didn't look untouchable. She looked reckless. And dangerous. The investigator stayed silent on speaker, probably listening carefully. Dad pointed at Chloe with a trembling hand. "Don't start lying because you're scared." She laughed once. Sharp. Bitter. "Lying." Then she looked directly at me. "Tell them who bought the car insurance for me after my third accident." The porch suddenly felt smaller. Mom turned slowly toward Dad. "Third." He avoided her eyes immediately. A cold feeling crawled up my spine. Chloe kept going. "Tell them who called his friend at county records to erase the DUI charge last year." Dad exploded then. Enough. But it was too late. Every secret hit the air at once like broken pipes bursting behind walls. My mother stood up, so abruptly the chair scraped across concrete. "You told me she never drove drunk. She was 24 and scared." Dad shot back desperately. "I handled it." Handled it. That word again. I stared at him, realizing this had never been Chloe alone. Dad had been protecting her so long. Neither of them remembered where the lies started anymore. Then police lights flashed across our driveway. Blue and red lights washed across the shattered Lexus, like a warning finally arriving years too late. Nobody spoke. 2 officers stepped out of the cruiser while another vehicle pulled in behind them. The insurance investigator moved fast. Faster than I expected. I realized then he must have already flagged the case before calling me back. One officer approached carefully. "We need to ask a few questions regarding the accident earlier tonight." Chloe instantly pointed at me. "She's exaggerating everything." The officer barely reacted. "Ma'am, we already interviewed witnesses from the bar." Dad closed his eyes. That tiny movement hurt more than yelling would have, because it meant he already knew. One officer asked Chloe to step aside. She refused at first, then finally walked toward the driveway with stiff shoulders and shaking hands. Mom sat silently on the porch chair, crying into both palms. I stayed near the front door, numb. The second officer turned toward Dad. "Sir, we also need clarification about prior record interference involving your daughter." Dad looked at me then. Not angry, not betrayed, just exhausted. Like he finally understood the cost of protecting one child by slowly sacrificing another. Chloe suddenly screamed from beside the patrol car, raw panic tearing through her voice. They found the pills in my purse. Mom started crying harder the second those words left Chloe's mouth. Dad didn't move at all. He stood in the driveway under the police lights, looking older than I had ever seen him. Smaller, somehow. Like every excuse he had built over the years finally collapsed at once. An officer guided Chloe toward the patrol car while she kept twisting back toward us. Dad, say something. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That silence changed everything. Because for the first time in our lives, he wasn't rescuing her. Chloe's panic turned ugly fast. This is your fault, she screamed at me. You wanted this. I looked at her through the flashing lights and realized something strange. I didn't hate her anymore. I was just tired. Tired of being the responsible daughter while chaos got protected because it cried louder. Tired of apologizing for damage I never caused. Dad finally looked at me. His eyes were red. I failed both of you. Maybe he did. But hearing him admit it felt like a door unlocking somewhere deep inside me. The tow truck hauled away what remained of my Lexus, while Chloe disappeared into the back seat of the cruiser. Nobody asked me to forgive her again.